on. Joining us now are Democratic strategist Matt Bennett and CNN senior political commentator David Urban. Good to see you both, gentlemen. David, I want to start with you because, look, you don't have to look far back to remember President Biden's health was at the forefront of the conversation. He was defended, and then I think really it was the CNN presidential debate where those dams seemed to break on that front. Trump is only a year into his presidency. He was already the oldest president to be inaugurated at the time. Are people fair to scrutinize this latest health reporting and questions about his fitness, and will he be able to escape this type of scrutiny?
Yeah, Omar, so let me just say that comparing President Trump's health to President Biden's health is ludicrous. Donald Trump is incredibly healthy. I just want to read from the Washington Post story because I think it's really important, this one line. Trump has been almost omnipresent in his second term, fielding questions from journalists, sometimes several times a day, delivering impromptu remarks, and regularly hosting dinners at the White House. That's incredibly important because what Joe Biden did was none of that. Joe Biden hid from the press. He did not invite the media into the Oval Office. I talked to the reporters in this Wall Street Journal last night, this story last night, that they said that during their interview of the president, he pushed back very vigorously on his health, but they've been present in the Oval Office with him when he's, juggling chainsaws, when he's being an air traffic controller, he's on the phone. He is incredibly vigorous. I spent time with the guy. You may not like his policies, you may not like a lot of things about this president, but his health is one thing that I think is gets made a whole great deal about, and there's no there whatsoever.
Well, some would say on the Biden side, there was no there until people were just noticing at different thresholds. I know many Republicans pointed out from the very beginning.
Not even close. Yeah. Not even close. Yeah. Omar, not even close. I'm going to push back on this hard. Joe Biden did not sit with the media. The media was kept from Joe Biden. Donald Trump gets interviewed every day by the White House press corps. Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I agree. He has been much more in front of the press and answered way more questions than President Biden did. I'm not disputing that. And that's part of my question to Matt here is that, look, some are going to look at this interview and say, this is complete transparency here. His physician has said he's in exceptional health, is fit for office. He's also, to David's point, been out there a lot talking to reporters, delivering unplanned remarks as well. What do you say to that? And should critics take the administration at its word when they say President Trump is healthy, good to go, ready to roll?
No, you can't take this administration at its word on anything. Look, if you set the bar at Joe Biden, then sure, I think Trump probably clears it. But I will stipulate as a Democrat and a former Biden supporter that the Biden administration, the White House, was not clear with the public about his health. And that became very evident. But that shouldn't be the bar. The bar should be, is this nearly 80-year-old man totally capable of performing the duties of president? And I admit he's very vigorous at the moment. But what is going on here? We just heard a medical professional wondering why he's taking 4 times the normal dose of aspirin. There's all kinds of questions that have been raised about this, and they haven't been very clear about it. I do think as he gets older, he's going to be into his early 80s by the end of his term. This is going to continue. And if the White House isn't more transparent about it, then these questions are going to continue to get raised. And as we see over and over and over with this White House, they're not transparent about anything. And when it comes to things that touch on the president personally, his physical vitality, that's the kind of thing he is especially touchy about. So this is not going to bed anytime soon.
And while different from the Biden questions, it is likely a dynamic that's going to be continued to be questioned and scrutinized over the course of this administration. David, I want to ask you about something else because Trump announced on Truth Social a few days ago he's removing the National Guard from Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland, saying, quote, despite the fact that crime has been greatly reduced by having these patriots in those cities and only by that fact. But I think the wider question here is, look, crime rates in some of those cities were falling before the National Guard were deployed, and they weren't necessarily deployed for long, extended periods, certainly not uninterrupted periods. But the question more is, I just wonder what the significance of pulling back in that manner says to you, David, in terms of how he plans to potentially deploy National Guard troops in the future, and how he sort of, I don't know what the right word is, wrestles with Democratic cities and mayors in similar ways that he has to this point.
Yeah, I think, Omar, I think your characterization is correct. That wrestling with that issue on how do you keep the citizens of these major cities safe. I think the Trump administration plan was to have the National Guard go in there and supplement the police forces that were on place, trying to free them up to do more law enforcement. A little bit of a show of force to kind of keep the bad guys at bay. And listen, judges in these different venues have determined the president can't do that. But what the president can do, and what he's hinted at, is coming back stronger in a different way. I think you've seen that quote. And that would be mean one thing. It would be invoking the Insurrection Act is the way the president can do that. And that still remains on the table. I think that a tool that is viable for the president to put troops in these different cities. And if the crime rate or if the circumstances warrant, I think you'll see the administration do exactly that.
Yeah, and the president or the Supreme Court ruled against one authority, not necessarily all. Matt, before we go, just I wonder your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think his comments about the Insurrection Act are kind of ominous. The Insurrection Act has not been invoked since 1992. When it has been invoked, it's generally with the support of the governor of the state. In 92, it was the Rodney King riots. Before that, it was a hurricane. That's a very serious thing to do because there's a law against active duty troops engaging in law enforcement. So if he's going to do it, he better have a reason, and it better be big, civil unrest or an insurrection. And there's no sign of anything like that. So if he uses it, I think Democrats are worried he's going to use it for purposes that are not appropriate.
David Urban, Matt Bennett, appreciate you both. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Sarah?